platforms today. We've got Instagram, Facebook, in our Q&A group, on YouTube, and LinkedIn. So I welcome you to this today's discussion. Today, I wanted to share something with you that this week I am talking about all of the things that when I do what's called a discovery health call, where someone reaches out because they have a health problem and they want to talk through that and see if they can get some help. Uh, they they tell me things, and I've done a lot of these, so I keep hearing some things. And one of the themes of this question is, well, what is functional medicine, and what is the difference between that and, say, I go to my primary care physician or whoever, and I get some labs done, and I want to know what's going on. What makes this different and functional? And so I wanted to kind of break that down and talk about how we do things differently in with a functional perspective. So I feel like the first thing we have to do is say what functional is. Functional healthcare is looking at it's not about coming at somebody with a, hey, you're in range or you're out of range on a lab test, therefore you need this medicine, or we're going to diagnose you with this disease, or we're going to remove this organ or perform this surgery, or anything like that. Functional healthcare is looking for patterns, connecting the dots to, this is how I feel, and this is what labs say. And I'm not going to necessarily only look for things that are outside of the advertised reference range. I'm going to look for things that are outside of an optimal or healthy range. So that's kind of the first thing. I actually use a lot of labs that are standard labs that a lot of doctors are maybe running already and things like that, but I'm looking at them differently. And then of course I add bits and pieces. And also in the functional world, there are a lot of really cool tests that a lot of traditional mainstream medical providers have never been taught about, never learned about, and it can be really, really valuable if you need some specialized information, say on gut health is one area where we can look at a stool test and we can dissect out what's really going on in your stool, and say, are you able to digest fats and carbohydrates, and is there bacteria in there that shouldn't be there? Is there enough of the good bacteria? There's a whole list of things that we can do on that side if we need to. Hormonally, there's something called the Dutch test that, if you've been following along with me, and if you want to go back and look at some of these blogs I've written, or some of these lives I've done and posts I've done and videos, I've talked a lot about hormone testing. The Dutch test can be one really, really good resource if you're not getting the information you need from, say, a blood test that looks at your hormones, and you really want to do a deep dive into the hormones. Then there are things you can do. I like to start with a panel that I've designed that looks at all the different body systems and says, okay, we're looking at inflammation, we're looking at the thyroid, we're looking at the blood sugar, we're looking at your liver markers, your kidney markers, your electrolytes, your immune system markers, asking the question of whether autoimmunity is an issue, looking at iron and other nutrient levels, things like B vitamins and vitamin D, and some of the ones that are chronically low on people. So we look at all of that. We cast a wide net with that, and we look at everything. And then if someone has an invitation to do some of that more involved functional testing, like a Dutch test or a stool test, or you can do a micronutrient test that tests hundreds of nutrients and at the red blood cell level. And so we can do those, but we don't jump to them first, because in most cases they're quite expensive, and they're really, really good if you need them. But in a lot of cases, if you look at just some other labs functionally, and you do the right things on those labs, you save a lot of expense up front, but you still get great results. So I actually have a little show and tell today. Christy, my wonderful assistant, who I just love and adore, is on this live with us, and she has got a picture. She was going to drop it in the comments of one of the pages of my functional lab report. And I don't know if you'll be able to see what I'm doing here, but I'll kind of put it up. And the thing that you're probably going to notice when you look at this is this is my lab report. And first of all, look how thick it is. It's got this person's report is how many pages is this? Let me look at this. This is actually a real report. I just scratched out the name. This report is 21 pages long. So how many times do you go get some labs? It's like one little page, and it comes back and they say, oh, everything looks great. And they don't even call you back in most cases. But when I run the labs, I'm actually trying to help you understand what is going on, patterns. And so I have something called an optimal range, and you'll see that's in this yellow band right here. What that is for is that's because even though the reference range is here to here, and they say like vitamin D should be between 30 and 100 on the reference range, really people feel best when their vitamin D levels are between 50 and 80. So it's like a much narrower zone where health is really optimized. And if you're at 31 or 32, do you need to raise your vitamin D? You bet you do, even if the reference range says it's okay. So that's the difference. And then when we color code it all cute like that, I feel like it really helps people understand and connect to what they're looking at. It helps me explain it when I sit down. I actually take a pretty significant amount of time with everybody who has these labs done with me to explain what they're looking at so that they will know what they're looking at, and they can make good decisions about their health. And hey, is this really something that I want to investigate and do something with? So that's, I hopefully that's a little bit of a description. And that's just the first page. There's a couple of pages of data like that. And then at the end of my reports, I also have a little program that I really like where it goes and tells you anytime one of those markers is out of the optimal range, it tells you what it is. So if we just, let's say we do a report of findings together and you're following along in the office, and this happens quite a bit, and everything looks good, and then all of a sudden you go home and you're trying to communicate this with a friend or a family member or your husband or your sister, and you're like, what did she say about that? What is an anion gap? You can go look it up, and it'll tell you what it means, and it'll tell you, hey, this is what the things that make this high or low or whatever. So it's just a great report. And the thing that makes this functional is I'm looking at it with another set of eyes of, is this person healthy? Yes or no? Not, are they in the range that needs medication? And do I just give out some medication or even supplements? I'm not just doing this so that I can give you 10 supplements. In fact, I am using this so I can give you less supplements because we actually understand what's really going on, and we use our diet and our lifestyle and the things we eat and the things we do first and foremost to solve the foundational health issues. And then we go in and we can add supplements that you're really in need of and that will really help. And hopefully use them, not all, we don't need to use them all the time. We use them until we give our lifestyle and diet changes time to kick in and work and do what they're doing. And then maybe you don't need 7 supplements for every day for the rest of your life. Maybe you can cut it back to 3 or 4. And that feels reasonable to most people, where they come to me and they've got bags and buckets of, I'm taking 56 supplements, and because I heard this was good for this and that was good for that. And it kind of ends that like panic button of, I have to be taking all these things. Well, maybe you could benefit from those, and maybe that's not something you need, and it actually in some cases might harm you. So if you have any questions live, I'd love to answer them for you. If you're coming in after the fact and watching this later, then post a comment, and if you have a question, in the comment section, and I'll try to get back to it just as soon as I can. So thank you for watching. We're gonna continue on this theme all week about what to do when you feel like something is not right, and you just want a different approach to that.